Hi, everybody. Welcome to Design Unfiltered. I've lost count of what number we're on. I think it's 17, maybe, not sure.
Yeah, 17.
Yeah, we're excited to start today. We've got some really great new faces, 2 new faces. Jared is off traveling out west. So we've got Erin Kelly and Rebecca Levi here from the Joanne Weaver Group. And I'm going to let them actually do an intro of themselves. But before we get into that, I think last week we skipped this part. We would love to know where people are calling in or listening in from. If you could just throw it in the comments, that would be awesome. We'd love to see. We've had people as far as Greece, and would just love to get the conversation going.
Here, I'm going to put it on in. I'm going to get this party started.
Yay!
Yeah. Oh, I'm Designed X Talent, everybody.
That's you.
Yep.
Cool.
Cool.
Well, I guess we can, while people are doing that, we can have somebody intro. Erin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Erin Kelly, pronouns she, her. I am currently a manager talent acquisition at TripAdvisor. So I obviously love that Jared is traveling. We love travel, obviously. I have 10 years of experience in recruitment, both agency side and internal. I've dabbled in HR. So bless anyone who's ever done HR. It is such a hard job. But I have recruited across all different types of positions, from creative to marketing to finance to jobs that I couldn't, frankly, quite tell you what they do on a daily basis. But lots of knowledge, lots of experience, and I'm excited to join you all today.
Awesome.
Yay, so glad you're here.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Rebecca Levi. I am Joanne Weaver's business partner at the Joanne Weaver Group. We have been working together since 2010. And I, like her, specialize in product management, UX research, product management, and as well as engineering. In addition to being a recruiter, I also have a certificate of career planning from NYU. So that was sort of something I did before I became a recruiter, because I was really inspired to figure out how to help people with their careers without knowing that I was going to, in fact, be a recruiter. I thought maybe just a career coach. And I am also a visual artist. So really glad to be here today as a guest host.
Oh, I didn't know that. What kind of art do you do?
I'm an embroidery artist, primarily. I do embroidered portraits. I have a show up somewhere in Minnesota right now, and at a group show. And I also do collage and pen and ink. But embroidery is sort of the main thing that raises people's eyebrows and goes,
I love that.
Yeah, she's really good too. And actually, Rebecca and I met because we both had a candidate, I think in program management or project management or something.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I just started my business 3 years before that. And I think, Rebecca, maybe you were working at a different recruitment agency. And he was like, hey, you guys are both artists and you're both recruiters. Like, you should have lunch. And we're like, okay. Which to this day, we're just like,
why?
That today? I know. We're like, would we ever have the time to like have lunch with a random person today? But yeah, we were both just open to it. And we had lunch and we're like, oh, let's have another lunch. Like, this is really great. And we just,
I love that. Since you're always connected. Well, that's what we do, right? We connect people. But I think we had our in real life event a few weeks ago, and you know, put a couple people together. They ended up riding home on the train together. So we make friendships too, you guys.
I know.
Yeah.
It's
That is how the best friendships are made. I mean, my gosh, the number of friends I've made in random places in New York City, wine shop, Subway, Old Output in Brooklyn.
Totally.
Awesome. And we're getting lots of people writing in too. Look at this. We got somebody from London today.
Hi, London.
Yeah.
Portland, Maine, Minneapolis.
Hooray.
Yeah. Sylvia and Bob. Hello. Hello. Where's everybody else from? Don't be shy. Put it in the chat. We want to know where everybody's calling in from.
I think what I'd love to know too is if this is anybody's first time here, or if you're a repeat viewer, watcher, or how did you find us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hi, Ryan.
Oh, Chicago. Fun.
Awesome.
Love Chicago. Everybody is like, you must take the architectural tour, which is the boat that goes down the river. And
I've
it was
never
wonderful.
been.
You've never been to Chicago?
Like when I was little, but not, I need to go back.
Yeah, I had never been until last year either. And then people are like, I can't believe you haven't been to Chicago. It's like a designer's paradise.
Mhm.
Everything is so beautiful, like so many beautiful Art Deco touches everywhere. It's just a feast for the eyes. You would love it.
Okay. I definitely
love
like it. I love architecture. I honestly almost went to school for architecture. But it was a longer program than mine. So
And
at the time.
I can tell you, Erica, I worked in architecture. The school never ends. You are constantly taking tests and certifications, and it's a lot. And you have an entire engineering team that wants to tamp your creativity because they're the ones that say, like, actually, you can't do that. So,
Oh my
It's not
amazing
physically
field,
possible.
but it's a lot.
I know. All right. So should we get into some questions?
Sure. And we got a couple first timers. We got Susie Cho, San Diego.
And I just, for some reason, I can't join the chat. So I just want to say hi to Susie Cho and Bob Holling and other people. I can't participate for some reason. There's some connection, but just want to say hello.
Yeah, that's usually me every week. So it's okay. One of us had to have it. So yeah, I mean, I think today we were going to try to focus a little bit on interviewing, questions, skills, some internal things with, hiring teams. I don't remember what we were talking about, maybe like wage transparency. And yeah, I think things like that. So I think the first question, I don't know if I should ask it, I guess.
Sure.
I don't really have an order of this. Erin, I guess,
free-flowing.
Gosh. So you work across a lot of different areas at TripAdvisor or even before. How many openings do you work on, I guess, at a time that are maybe different from each other? And then how do you kind of create a good process for yourself working with the different hiring teams? Do you ever have to do pushback to any of these hiring managers? How do you create maybe a job description? What is your kind of process? I know you're super organized, and I think some people would love to see this organization coming from internal. Gosh, Fred.
Yeah, so it depends. There's been times when I've only had 1 or 2 openings that I'm working on, and then there's times when I've had 10 plus openings that I'm working on across different teams. And honestly, organization is the only way I keep my head on straight, and the only way that I'm not asking candidates throwing out random buzzwords to try to remember which job I'm interviewing them for. But the way that I build those relationships and kind of have a smooth flowing process is open communication. And I'm a big fan of everything, if possible, in writing. So I do a kickoff call with every single one of my hiring managers, whether I've worked with them before or not, where we're going through the job description. We're talking about our list of must-haves and nice-to-haves. I try to limit those must-haves to 3, because as we all know, the perfect candidate does in fact not exist. And I'm going to go with 90% of the time, the level that folks interview at, they could never pass their own interview process.
Word.
And so that's why I try to have some pretty strict guardrails. But I think the big part of every single stage when it comes to recruitment is actively listening to what people are saying and then adjusting yourself to meet the needs of that person. So listening to feedback, asking more questions about that feedback, talking through decisions, but having things in writing so that you have a single source of truth. So I have a kickoff template that I use, and I'm lucky with a company of the size of TripAdvisor, we actually have those job architectures that already exist. So we have a bank of job descriptions. But I have also been in scenarios where we've written them from scratch, and it's just a lot of research, but also trying to tie the job back into the specifics of the day-to-day of the position and the kind of ethos of the company itself. But organization, organize, write it down, and in my personal opinion, make it aesthetically pleasing.
Love that.
I love
Can
that
you
too.
can you talk about what we were saying before about when a new rec needs to be opened, like what that process is internally? Like, is it fight or flight kind of thing, or is there way more to it than we see?
So there is a lot to getting a position open. So by the time that you're seeing an active listing, that function and that role has probably been needed for at least 3 months, if not longer. So when you're getting these hiring managers and it's up, it's posted, we're actively interviewing, they are looking for a solution to a problem or to fill a talent gap that they have probably had for quite some time. So in a lot of ways, you're getting somebody who is being so specific and picky because they are looking for an answer to their most immediate and pressing needs. I also want to just say that, is that fair? No, but it's one of the realities that I think that we have to deal with when we're thinking about recruitment and hiring, is that your hiring manager is coming from a place of need. And they are looking for a fast fix. And it is the job of a recruiter in some ways to kind of get that hiring manager to take a step back, to look at that big picture and not just that immediate instant gratification from finding this unicorn of a candidate who's the savior to all your problems.
Yeah.
Right.
Are there any like certain types of questions for an interviewer to ask to see if they are like that solution, or to sort of like, how do they find out if it is the right role for them, but how do they kind of, what is a good question to ask, I guess, in an interview to make sure that they're going to maybe help solve it?
Yeah. So from a candidate perspective, I think that it's important to ask questions about past projects and future projects and goals and aspirations. One of the hardest things that we as recruiters do is have to reject candidates. And sometimes, actually, I'm going to go with most of the times, it doesn't mean that you're not qualified or knowledgeable or smart. It is that the projects that you chose to share don't necessarily align with the current or future projects that that team itself might be working on. So asking the questions about, I noticed that this happened recently, like you launched this new product. Is that what your team worked on? What were some of the things that the team needed to do? Were there any missing skill sets that you wish you'd had to get that over the finish line? So really understanding and taking it from a job title and a generalized function to specifically that company, that team, and then being able to pull examples and insights from your own experience that are going to align with the present and future needs of that team.
Mm-hmm.
Erin, I just wanted to interject with a question there. We spoke a lot about how, as recruiters, we all want our candidates to succeed, including internal recruiters. Like, you are a gatekeeper, but you also, once you've made the investment in somebody and you've sent them on to the hiring manager, you want that person to set that person up for success. I just wanted to know, like, if you're the first person somebody's talking to and they're going to be doing a design review, are you open to a question of like, I have 3 great case studies and I know the team only wants to see 2. Is it okay for me to ask which I'm thinking of these 2, but I want to run this third idea by you. Do you think these 2 would be okay to present?
Absolutely. I try to give that information ahead of time, which I have gotten from the hiring manager, like specifically, what are you looking for in a case study? And then I tell my candidates, I'm here if you have any questions. So I'll send them the instructions that I try to have as much information in as possible, but they're always more than welcome to run stuff by me, and I'll do my very best to try to respond accordingly.
I like what we were talking about. We had a little warm-up session this morning to all get acquainted, the four of us, about how, we are like the recruiter, be it external recruiters like the three of us, or Erin, you being an internal recruiter, that we're all here to help. So I think having, and like we're here, like, we're a friendly we're a friendly source of information that, like, we want you to be successful, right?
Yeah.
And so, and Erin, you had some great thoughts to share with us this morning about that. But what's your take on, kind of like demystifying the role of a recruiter and like kind of de-scarifying like what we do? You had some great
Excuse me
things.
while I step up onto my soapbox.
Yeah.
We are not the bad guys. Internal recruiters are not the villain. We're here to facilitate that matchmaking process. And if you've ever attempted dating at all, you know how difficult that is. And it's not always a match. And it doesn't mean that either party is not a good person or anything like that. So it is your first introduction to a company, whether it is an external recruiter or an internal recruiter. But the best way that you can think about that is your new partner. That is your new best friend. You should be able to ask them questions and they should be able to ask you questions. And that initial interview is just as important as that interview that you're going to have with a hiring manager down the road. We are not hiding information. We're not Scrooge McDuck. We don't have all of these like extra dollars that we're withholding from you. I don't get the dollars that I don't give you from a job. My goal is always to get the best possible offer for my candidate as possible. And the best way for that to happen is for us to be able to communicate. I will say that something that I hope changes in the future is I'm very hesitant sometimes to give honest feedback. And I would love it if we could create a safe space where recruiters, internal, external career coaches can give honest feedback that will be received and not seen as an attack. Because if you think about the way that a recruitment process works, that is what, an hour, 2 hours in which you have to essentially introduce yourself, sell yourself, get somebody invested in you. That's not that much time. That's also anywhere from 3 to 5 to 6 to 7 people who all have to be on board too, because you're interviewing with multiple people. So when you say something, you might not think how it might be perceived by somebody. But if you have that relationship with your recruiter where they can say, hey, listen, I know that we've all had really crappy teams that we've worked with, or that person that we don't want to go to with anything, or the nightmare client. But your hiring manager doesn't want to hear about that. They're already thinking 10 steps ahead. Well, crap, what if they talk about me this way down the road? Or is this somebody who always approaches things with a negative viewpoint? So your recruiter is your friend. Be nice to us.
We also, Erin, I think a theme that came up a lot in our earlier conversation was like how to help your recruiter help you, help us help you. And what are some components that that a candidate can do to help you advocate for them in the next step?
Yeah, it starts with the resume, honestly. If you have a resume that is concise, that is talking about you. And I think people are so guilty of when we get a resume. I don't know about you all. Even for my own resume, I go blank. I don't know what I do. I couldn't tell you what I've done for the past 10 years. I can't put it into words. I just work here. But sometimes it is creating that brag sheet of all of the things that you've done, because your resume shouldn't be a list of tasks. That's not going to help me understand you. Anybody can Google product designer, see what the job function is, and throw it onto a resume. I want to hear about your design challenges, your design process and thinking, and the specific projects that you worked on. So not necessarily treating that initial interview as this kind of general surface level, like, let me tell you what a product designer could do, but having specific examples to get to know you as a person is going to better help a recruiter sell you internally, externally. So this is like the one time that I'm like, it's all about you. It's all about me. Your resume should be all about you and not about all of the product designers that exist within the space. So that I think is hugely helpful in allowing a recruiter to better sell you. Honesty. If there's one person in the process that you can be honest with, it's the recruiter. So being able to tell them what you're looking for, so that that recruiter can tell you, which is this position aligned with what you're looking for. Sometimes the answer is no. You know, I had a candidate for a research role who loved to get into the nitty gritty of developing these surveys and research plans. And that wasn't what my position was. And I was able to just straight up tell her, based on what you said you wanted, this isn't it. So honesty is the best policy. As much detail about you as a person and an individual and a designer, as opposed to all of the designers, is going to help you go a long way in terms of helping a recruiter be your best friend.
And I think also with honesty is the best policy. I think there's like, you know, you were saying earlier, like hiring managers don't want to hear anything negative. Like if you came out of a really tough experience, there's like certain catchphrases people use where it's not speaking negatively about them, but you understand it was a negative experience without being negative, right? Like there's a certain kind of, you know, language that you can use. Like it was, you know, this was particularly challenging, but I learned X, Y, and Z. So it's kind of making that shit sandwich where you're like, this was great. This was like challenging. You never say like, oh, this was awful, or I didn't like this teammate, or like this was really hard. Because if you're saying such negative things in a very professional environment where you have to sell yourself, it's like, what are you actually going to be like on the job if you're letting even a whiff of that negativity out then? But I think there's like corporate speak. There's ways of saying it where it's like, okay, like I got it, that maybe that was really tough. And thank you for phrasing it in that way.
Right.
Yeah. I think
don't use the, sorry, there we go. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, this is why we practice this stuff. It's sometimes you can be in an interview with someone and it just feels like such a good rapport. Like you guys are sitting back, kicking it, like really enjoying yourselves, but like they're not your friend. They are interviewing you. They're not your friend yet. So you cannot be that honest about like the shit show of past companies that you've worked for. It really needs to be super professional until you get hired. Then you can figure it out then.
Well, and maybe it's honesty, but also with a bite of humble pie. I've been incredibly turned off by candidates who act like every single company they've gone into has been a shitstorm and they came in and fixed it all. Like I've had that and I'm like, I don't know about that. But you know, I mean, you can use those words to describe challenges because we're not naive to think they don't exist. But sometimes it's like, you know, I had to learn how to communicate in a way that I didn't communicate. Or, you know, we had conflicting timelines in place. Like there are things that you can say that indicate a challenge without being negative.
You know, Erin, as you're talking, I thought of two things. Well, one was, I think we should ban the word toxic from why somebody left a job. It's shorthands, but for everything we're saying now, like you don't want to say, oh, it's a toxic environment, because there's so much there to unpack. And like Joanne was saying, we don't want to, a hiring manager doesn't want to hear, a company does not want to hear that you might be calling their company toxic in the future. But
you might be the toxic person, right? Like, Chrissy's toxic. Maybe it's a toxic person.
Yeah.
And if they're that bad, we probably already know. You don't have to say it.
Right, exactly. Just like a wink.
Yeah.
You know about that company. But Erin, while you were talking, I just thought, you know, that somebody saying that they're describing themselves as the savior of this company, that account, this project. You know, I think there's an opportunity, even if it's true, to show that you are a team player. Like, how did you rally the team to accomplish this as a group? You know, what did you do to influence the discipline? You know, there's sort of like more obvious type A influence, but there's also different kinds of politicking. And, you know, how did you do a research project to back up your thinking? You know, how did you win people over? Like there's a story there beyond, I was the hero. Totally. There's a story you can tell about being a team player, and also, can you talk about what the impact was? You know, going back to Erin, what you were saying about, not wanting a resume that's just like, I did this, I did that. It's a job description. And this is advice I give everybody on every level. And I assure people, I'm like, look, I know you're a VP today, but this is still something I tell everybody at every single level candidate, to talk about your accomplishments. Like, this is your opportunity to shine. Assume your recruiter does know the basics of your job, but what differentiates yourself? And being able to say, like, the anecdotal wins that we just talked about, but also quantifiable wins. Did you save your money? Did you save your company X amount of money? Did you make your company X amount of money? Did you win an account? Did you, what was the result of that? Are there metrics involved? And I think for designers today, every single hiring manager I see and every single case study, they want to know that you can support your design decisions and recommendations with metrics.
Yes. Erica, I did see that Ryan and Bob had a couple questions.
Let me go to Ryan first.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Ryan. Math is not my forte. So your question about how much it costs to hire.
Oh, yes. And I just want to insert too, just as far as the format of Design Unfiltered. So we've asked our questions of Erin. So now this is the time where we open up the forum to questions for everybody. So as you're thinking of your question, feel free to put it in the chat. We'll get to as many of them as we can, and all four of us will answer them. I mean, you can direct it to all of us. Generally, we can all take it on. Or if you want to direct it to one of us in particular, you can too. But yeah, this is your time to put your questions in the chat. We'd love to hear from you.
So Ryan says, how do you view candidates who only talk about all of their past experiences as great ones without acknowledging some of the obstacles they had? Erin, would you like to answer?
I think great candidates can do both, because I think that an obstacle that you've overcome can result in a great experience. In fact, I think it makes you a stronger professional in your field if you can overcome obstacles and come out the other side. Or honestly, not come out the other side, but understand what it was that got you to where you are. Because, like, let's be honest, everything doesn't always end up, perfect. So I think great candidates do both. And I think that when I think about talking about your past experiences as great ones, I think that they're dynamic, and I think it shows your enthusiasm, but your capacity to learn by, again, viewing an obstacle as a great opportunity.
Yeah. I think the way that I'd probably think of this, if somebody only talked about the great experiences they had and didn't mention any obstacles, I'd probably just think that they were full of bullshit. And it's like, nobody exists in a vacuum. Like, nobody has a perfect experience. Like, every job is going to have its challenges. So there was a guy who was giving a talk at a UX event where his whole case study that he presented to a room full of his peers, like, this was like, kind of high stakes. He talked about a project that failed. And I really like that talk really stuck in my mind, because I was like, first of all, he's really brave to do that. And of course, at the end, it's like they figured out what didn't work. And then, he's able to like end it on a good note. But I really love the fact, and I love, Erin, you mentioned like humble pie earlier. I think to bring forth, like, to reveal weakness or reveal a mistake, reveal a learning, it's like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you're a real person. I can relate to you. Now I believe what you're going to say. You tell me, like, I made a mistake and I rectified it, or I made a mistake and maybe didn't, and this is what I would do now differently. It's like, oh, you're human. Like, now you actually have, I believe what you're going to say from here. And that just creates a much stronger relationship. I'm going to go to bat for you more. We're relating in a more intimate way, which I think is really important.
Totally.
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing there too. Like, that's a predictable question. So you might want to, just put it in your toolkit to have on tap, ready to go should somebody ask it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your biggest weakness? Don't say, oh, I work too much.
Yeah, I work too hard.
Yeah. I'm too excellent at what I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Are there any other questions out there? I can ask something. We were talking earlier maybe about staying positive and a positive mindset. I think, a lot of people are really banging their heads against the walls, and it's I think going back to the maybe being negative in an interview response, how do you stay positive or get back into a positive mindset? Could be simply going for a walk, right? But how do you what do you think?
I do a lot of formal and informal career coaching myself, and I am often talking to friends, and I have been in a scenario where I've been unemployed and looking for a job. And I think what I tell everyone is, let's acknowledge the elephant in the room. Job searching is mentally exhausting. It is incredibly tough because you are daily putting yourself out there, asking for judgment. And there's no way that it doesn't hurt or weigh on you in one shape or another. And oftentimes it's taking people on average, 3+ months to find a job. The market has been up and down over the past 4 years. It's really freaking hard. And I think we should all just say that and acknowledge that. And once you've acknowledged it, I think part of your job search strategy needs to be addressing your mental health and doing what you need to stay mentally well through an incredibly difficult time. And that's going to look different depending upon the person. I gave the example of when I was unemployed, I needed a place to be regularly where I felt needed and was in the presence of others, and not in my apartment rewatching Grey's Anatomy for the 8th or 9th time every day and not getting dressed. So I did temp work. I was a temp receptionist. Was that my long-term career plan? No. Was it paying what I wanted it to? No. But I was getting up every day. I was going there. I was sitting in the front of an office. I was getting to cosplay as a member of, this company for a day or sometimes longer. And that kept me mentally sharp and better than if I were to just sit around and keep doing the same thing and waiting for the opportunity to come along. And I know, Rebecca, you suggested some other ways to stay mentally well, but mental wellness needs to be a part of your job search. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very difficult. And I think that you'll have a higher hill to climb when you do finally get that role and you're starting your job, and you're going to have this post-job search hangover. So I don't know, Rebecca, if you wanted to share your suggestion for mental wellness.
Sure, I'd be delighted to do that. I told this to all of the people when I was career coaching, and I did this for myself also because, I've worked in Joanne and I have been together for 14 years, but prior to that, ups and downs of the tech industry. I've been laid off 3 times. So I've been there as well. And I always recommend don't give up your gym membership. And if you don't have one, get one. The physical fitness is so important. And if you feel, if it's something that's challenging from a financial perspective, running free yoga videos on YouTube. But I think also really not just doing it randomly, but train for a 10K or more. Do a commitment on your Peloton app. Do it as a job. Make sure you are going 3-4 days a week. Do a routine. Learn something new. Allow yourself to have a foundation and grow in that area. I've seen that make such a huge difference. And also challenging, do some weight training. Feel really solid. So that is just a small piece of advice. Maybe take a class in something totally unrelated to your career. Maybe take an art class. Maybe
I
take
don't walk dogs.
Yeah.
What's that?
Be a dog walker.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, something that aligns with your passion outside of work. I think
Mhm.
that can get your brain firing in different ways, right? It's
Mhm.
like the connections
Totally.
that you're making. If you're only sitting at home and watching Grey's Anatomy for 8 hours a day, it's like, okay, you've got those synapses that are firing very deeply. But if you're doing something different, it's like you're making different connections in your brain, and then new ideas can open up too, right?
Mhm.
Like, oh, like here's a different way that I can maybe, I don't know, structure this case study, or like, oh, here's a new type of company that I want to go for. Like it, I feel like those sparks of inspiration happen when you're not watching the pot boil, but you are going
Mhm.
for the walk. You are doing a cooking class, or you're doing something that's like really unrelated.
Well, and similarly, you never know who you're going to meet. I mean,
Yeah,
you
Oh,
know,
yeah,
absolutely.
you could meet your next boss in a coffee shop or at a volunteer event or at the gym. You
yeah.
never know.
And I'm
Yeah.
so glad you mentioned that because every single job I've had in my entire life has been through some random connection like that.
Mhm.
So,
I love
Yeah.
and I think it's been hard also. We used to have a lot of in-person networking events that I think a lot of us got a lot out of as job seekers, as recruiters, as people in the industry, keeping up with our skill sets. And it's much harder to do virtually, that's for
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm.
But I think, things are starting. I mean, Design Unfiltered had a live event that was amazing. And so many people at different parts of their careers came. I think it was so enlivening. So I think looking for those live events again, and possibly things that are outside of your own discipline. I mean, I personally love in UX, in product design, but maybe something that's tertiary, you
Yeah.
know, maybe a
Yeah.
product management meetup, for instance, for a designer. Like maybe that'd be a great place to meet some people. Because you never know where that connection is going to come.
I know,
And just
yeah.
putting the energy out there, I think goes a long way.
I know, Erica, you were doing this. I don't know if you're still doing this, but you were like doing something that was challenging your comfort level regularly. So you went to this murder mystery dinner party, and I was like, what a cool thing.
I
I mean,
did.
you weren't alone. First of all, I think that's so just wonderful that you did that. I think that'd be very intimidating for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Um,
It
but
was
you
pretty
did it,
badass.
and you just were so open to new things. And I'm sure you probably met people that you never would have met in the design world there, right?
Totally. For anyone listening, I did a murder mystery like test run with this, I don't know, company. It was at Carmine's in Times Square.
Wow.
And because I dressed in like a 1920s flapper dress, they like assigned me a role in the murder mystery, which is like my worst nightmare. So I did that, and I don't know, it was really fun. It was very interesting, but I love going to things like that where like you'll never be in the same room as these people ever again. Like it's so random.
Mhm.
So I've been trying to put myself into different situations, like a yoga class. Like I don't really do yoga, or I went to Bath House in Flatiron
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
like last week. So cool. So many different people. Just like these interesting environments where like go by yourself, go with a friend. Um, but yeah, you just sort of talk to people, exchange numbers. I mean, I have a dog now, so I walk him all the time. And I've talked to so many neighbors. Like a lot of
Mhm.
neighbors work in tech
Mhm.
around me.
Yeah.
So we have a common dog thing already,
Yeah.
but it's like
I love
easier to
that.
sort of chat.
It's true.
It's a great point. And I think also what's important is make sure you mention what you do or that you're
Yeah.
looking.
You have to put it out
Um,
into the universe.
Also, use
Yeah.
your first name and your last name. I had a mentor that was like, if you're just Rebecca, you're just Rebecca in Joe's office. Like you have to use your last name. I personally
Mhm.
have a
That's smart.
soapbox about that. If you go to an event, put your first name and last name on your name tag if there's a name tag situation, so somebody can actually look you up on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But mentioning that you're on a job search, I'm a product designer in
Mhm.
advertising, and I'm on my job search. You never know what synapses that's going to fire in somebody's brain. They might literally be like, "Oh, my neighbor works for blah blah blah," or my uncle, my aunts, my. I, I met one of my uh, first creative directors I ever placed I met because my mother sang with his mother in a chorus. So you really don't know, but
I
if
love
people
it.
don't, it's in the theme of like, help people help you.
I have
Help
a good
people help
story.
you.
Right.
One of the first product designers I replaced, he was a student of way back when Rover used to be called Dog Vacay in New York City. I had been dog sitting this golden retriever mixed dog, which I love. And the woman, the owner, she and I just would talk all the time. She used to be an English teacher. And then I told her what I did. And she introduced me to her student, who has now become, I've placed him several times as a product or UX designer, which is just very weird. Like, love that stuff.
I love that. I love that. And I was listening to a great podcast. It's called Hidden Brain. It's an NPR podcast. And I forget the name of the episode. If I remember it, I'll put it in the comments in the chat once we put this in the live stream or the replay. But it was basically that people fear that strangers don't want to talk to them, especially now in the age of iPhones where everybody's just in their phones all the time. But I think people are actually really craving that connection. And that people don't mind as much as you think they're going to mind. In fact, they might very much welcome you starting up a conversation. Like, I think we all crave connection. And I think we're really lacking that connection, like the Design Unfiltered event. And Rebecca, I'm so glad you came. That was so nice to have you there. But I mean, Jared and me and Erica, the whole time we're just like, wow, like we really feel like we're getting so much information from this UX design community that they are craving in-person connection. Let's give them an opportunity to all come together. And there's just nothing like it. And, people can come alone. Like, I think people get intimidated to go alone. But I think if you can just go and just think to yourself, like, what do I have to give to this situation? Not like, how are people going to judge me? Or like, sometimes I think we can get that spotlight effect. Like, this happens when I travel alone and I'm going out to dinner by myself, which I always hate doing because I'm just like, everybody's looking at me as a single woman eating alone. I look like a pariah. But it's like, nobody's really looking at you. And if they are and they're judging you, then who cares? You're never going to see them again anyways. Right. But I think just going in with the belief, because I think it actually is true that like people want to hear from me, people want to talk to me, and people want to connect. And I think that's a much different energy of like, oh God, I don't know if I want to interrupt them and like, who am I to say this? It's just you're going to come with a different energy.
Yeah. Humans are social creatures. Like we do need interaction. I mean, yes, you can be an introvert for sure, but we do crave other people and talking to other people. I mean, the other day I was walking home and a woman next to me on the crosswalk like smiled, or I guess I smiled at her, and she had said hi to all these people and nobody reacted or responded. And then because I was looking at her and smiling, she was like, "Oh my God, you have such a great smile. Thank you for smiling at me. Like, how are you today?" It's like 9 in the morning. So we walked a few blocks together. Me and a total stranger.
Wow.
So I don't know. I like to challenge people to try to talk to somebody completely different. Like if you're sitting on a bus, talk to the person that is next to you.
Yeah. It's a little Duff homework, a little Design Unfiltered homework for those who choose to take it on. Talk to a random stranger this week and let us know how it went.
Well, places like New York City is like, I love New York. And if I suddenly, came into money, I'd go back in a heartbeat. But it's a city full of main characters. No one's thinking about you. Everybody's a main character in their own story. So, if you just have that mindset, and also that it's New York where you can be whoever you want because nobody cares. Like, do you think that guy that wears the diaper and plays the flute and stomps around the street cares what you think about him? I don't. And if you like think about the way that you interact with those people, it's like you clock that he's there, but like whatever, you don't think about it afterwards.
Right. We don't even care about the most extreme characters, so we're not going to really be thinking about.
No, I always just tell my mom, like, don't look too hard unless you want to get involved. Like, it's fine.
And on the other hand, that it absolutely like that thing, if you're feeling self-conscious going, I'm really not that important in these people's world. They're not looking at me. They're not judging me. On the other hand, if you wear something a little fun, a little quirky, flag in some way that you have some kind of conversational piece, especially at a networking event, or an event, a party, anything, it invites conversation. It invites people having a opportunity to tell you something or to talk to you. And I have found that so helpful to do. Okay, I'm going to plug my new purse, but you'll understand why in a second. So I have this, well, I can't see it. It has like a gigantic tiger face on it. And people come up to me all the time to talk about this thing. So if somebody was like, oh, Rebecca, you know, she's a recruiter. I don't know if I can talk to her. What's my opening? You know, if you're wearing some interesting shoes, you know, or something, people going up and being like, wow, I love your shoes. You're in for that conversation.
Think about how many friendships have happened because a woman has a dress with pockets.
So
okay,
true.
tell me more.
Like as soon as, oh, I like your dress. What's the first thing that somebody said? It has pockets.
It has pockets.
Yeah. How many times has that been the start to a conversation? It has pockets.
It's so true. I just read something about a wedding dress that has pockets.
You're absolutely
A wedding
right.
dress. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
My friend's wedding dress had pockets. I don't have pockets and I feel lost.
Oh my gosh, how funny. You know what I do when somebody compliments me on my things? If I got it on sale or if I feel like I got a really good price for it, I just tell them like, oh my God, I got it on sale at blah, blah, blah. It was the best thing.
I love that.
So pulling this back to design too, at wearing something a little designy at a design events is like a natural fit.
Totally.
It's like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
I do think that comment actually does speak to a change I am seeing in the workforce and in the workplace is bringing your full self to work. Now, do not whip out your bandage dress and blazer for your interview, but I think that you should bring a little bit more of yourself every day. And again, that does make you unique. It starts conversations. I just chatted with a candidate who told me they're taking a photography class through the Smithsonian. She brought her full self to the interview before it even started. And I don't know anything about this person's experience, but I was like, that is so freaking cool. I love that. So bring, and now maybe not like the full self, but you know, bring a little snack of yourself.
I see dead pixels. That's amazing. That's an amazing comment.
What's that? I see dead pixels. Oh, that's fun. Sarah June, love it. Love it.
Excellent. That's a perfect one.
That's great. I think some candidates would ask like, oh, should I put my hobbies on my resume or should I have it on my portfolio? I personally really like to see that. I think I've told this story on Design Unfiltered before, but I'll say it again, where I was coaching this junior UX designer. And I love crossword puzzles. Like my boyfriend entered me into the National Crosswords Championship as a joke, but it was really intimidating and kind of awful, but wonderful too. But anyway, this gal that I was coaching loves to do puzzles and she put it on her resume. So it was just this instant conversation starter where we just had this rapport with each other. And I think going back to what you were saying earlier, Erin, about how we're not the enemy, like we're here to help you. I think also something too, to add on to that is that we're also real people. And, we have our own interests. Like we want to connect with you on like a personal level, because then we're going to be more invested in you as a candidate. And when hiring managers and other people are interviewing you, like, yes, they want to know that you can do the job and you've got the skills, but they also want to know that you're going to be great to work with every day. Right. So I think it's focusing, yes, on your achievements and the metrics and all the things that we've been talking about are super important. That's job number one. But I'd say like job number 1A or 1B is like bringing your full self, but being curious and being interested and interesting to create that personal connection, because there's so much to it. There's so much more to it than just your resume and just your skills.
Yeah,
that's a great point. I'd love to just pull that back to the LinkedIn user. There's a LinkedIn user who asked, which do you just consider more important in design applications, the CV or the portfolio? Portfolio as website or PDF form. I think we can answer that question, but I do want to interject something specific about CV that or resumes that I feel that people have a missed opportunity is not just the hobbies, but like a professional statement. I personally like a very short professional statement that can actually show me a little bit about the person's personality, even how they write. So they have a little bit of a sense of humor. How do they describe themselves in a nutshell? I mean, it's an elevator pitch. It's a little bit of writing, a little bit about themselves. So I think that's an opportunity to insert that. I think
And can I just add something in that too, Rebecca?
Yeah.
So I feel like that is so full of cliche most of the time. Professional summaries or objectives, like it's just so full of so much BS. I mean, it might not be BS to the person, but if you say you're a team player and collaborative and blah, 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 everybody says that.
Good communication.
Yeah, great communicator. That's table stakes.
Get rid of that. That's wasted words.
That could be anyone. That could be anybody.
Right. Yes, but are you like a dog walker in your spare time, or a crossword puzzler, like something that sticks out, especially in this market when there's so much signal to noise ratio, there's so many candidates for each role. Like, how do you stand out? Like, how do you be that little spark?
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry to interrupt you, Rebecca. I just wanted to add
caveat though to what you're putting on there. It is good if like what you're putting on there is your hobby does in a roundabout way tie into the job that you want.
Yeah, sure.
David's giggling because I just saw a resume where they said they liked reading and brunch, which, okay, we all love brunch, but like brunch is your hobby, like maybe not for your resume, but something that like adds flavor to you as a person, but that can translate into a job, which maybe brunch.
Yeah. I have a friend who's a lawyer actually, and I've been telling her, add some hobbies. And I've never worked on a legal resume before. I don't know. It's very different. But she did. She added that she was a US Open ball girl. And
oh wow.
First thing that the hiring manager said was, "Were you a ball girl?" And for 20 minutes going into first interview, and I don't want to jinx it or anything, she's in late stages now, but was literally about the US Open. If this person could apply, was there an age limit? Like, how do I get it? So she told me that she's like, "I did it because you told me to do it." But I was like, "Oh, here we are."
Yeah.
Nice job. And
I want to point out too, in case anybody's thinking like, well, I don't like, I mean, I'm not a sports person, but I would be so fascinated by that detail is really sparks my curiosity. And I think we were talking earlier too about resume, as recruiters, we glance, we're not reading every word. So things that you're trying to put out hooks, why we were speaking about metrics before, like that bursts out of the page, brands burst out of the page. Hobbies are also a kind of hook that can do that. So you don't know which one of those things is going to land. Somebody may not care about hobbies, but they want to know your metrics, or they like brands, but all these things are like telling people you're on the job hunt and this is what you do. Going out there more, and this is how. Flagging that you're somebody who wants to open a conversation. All these are little hooks that make you pop out just a little bit more.
Relatable.
Yeah. Can I do my PSA on photos on resumes?
Yes.
Oh, photos.
Later. Yes.
Your job specifically requires that they use your likeness, your photo, take your picture off your resume. You're inviting in a bias that didn't need to be in the room. Frankly, I don't care what you look like. Can you do this job? Great. I often sometimes don't even know what someone looks like until after I've hired them. And to me, it takes up precious space on your resume for you to have this like headshot or Instagram photo on there. And it detracts from me actually being able to see the work that you've done. So no pictures on resumes.
Do you get that a lot? Because I really don't. I haven't gotten that in years. And if I do, it's usually somebody that's not from the US.
So I'm good at pinpointing out when they're not from the US. I can flag that, and that is forgivable. Because I get that certain countries, it's normal for you to put a photo, even like things like marital status and things like that. So that gets a pass. But I mean, granted, I did used to work in PR, so there were a lot of them, a lot of photos on that. But yes, I am getting quite a few resumes that have a glamour shot.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right, the front left hand corner.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's really interesting. It's interesting to see the different trends that you're seeing versus what other people are seeing. I
Oh.
wanted to put Powell's. Hi, Powell. He put "I rule the universe in my spare time" as one of his extracurriculars. I think that would definitely get a lot of attention on your resume.
And Powell, I have some feedback for you.
Yeah.
I just want to talk.
Yeah, a little humble pie. That humble pie comment earlier.
I wanted to address Bob's question about ATS systems because I have my own take on that, and I'm curious what Erin thinks as somebody who's in-house and may have a different one than we do.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of people asking this question, and it's a totally valid question on LinkedIn in particular. A lot of concern about it. And as far as I know, I think as long as you have keywords somewhere inside of your resume, the ATS will pick up on it. So like if you're a product designer, make sure you have UX and user experience somewhere in there, UI somewhere in there. Make sure you have the program, Figma somewhere in there. But I think that people are unfortunately spending a lot of unnecessary energy in perfecting the resume because they're thinking about the ATS's point of view. And I think as long as you have keywords that are peppered in there, the ATS is going to find them if somebody's doing a search on like, I need somebody with Figma skills. I would lean more into the crafting that we talked about during this meeting. And Erin, I'm curious what you think from your perspective as an internal recruiter, if that's any different.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I drill it down to the absolute basics, make sure that it can cross the threshold and get into the ATS system to begin with. I find that the best way to do that is to have it in a PDF. Because with Microsoft Word, it might depend on what version of Word you have. It might not necessarily come through. So PDF is ideal. And when you're doing things like easy apply on LinkedIn or applying through websites, like with an easy button, you can within LinkedIn save your PDF resume so that it's not converting your LinkedIn profile into a resume, which is what it will do if you haven't associated a document for those easy applies. So that is what's going to get you into the system in the first place. Now, controversial, I put eyes on every single resume that comes through my applicant pool when possible. So I am not taking advantage of some of the new technology that is pulling out keywords. That sometimes has to change because sometimes I've gotten over 1,000 resumes sometimes for certain job postings, or right now I'm dealing with like 600. So determining the keywords, they're in the job description. No, 9.5 times out of 10, their keywords are in the job description, and it's those words that you see that pop up more than once throughout that job description. So making sure that those are in your document. I know this is a pain, and I'm not saying that you should go through and do the ones that are like attach your resume and then also tell us about all of your experience. But sometimes the reason why I put extra questions on my application process has been because I need a way to weed people out. Like if I need you to be an expert in SQL or proficient in SQL on day one, I'm going to put that as a question. I need you to answer it honestly, because if you're not, it wouldn't be setting you up for success for this job. You're not going to make it through the recruitment process. That was one of my top 3 must-haves. And if I can know ahead of time whether or not you have it, that's going to help both of us in the long run, and neither of us are going to waste our time. So if there are a reasonable number of questions, like 2, 3, please answer them. Don't put NA.
Do you ever read cover letters? Do you guys require cover letters? Or is that kind of like gosh, I heard someone somewhere, they said that they don't read them, but they like it when people attach them because it means they put in more effort, which I just think is disgusting personally.
I don't care. The only time I care is if I happen to glance at it and I see that you've put the wrong company name.
So it can only really hurt you. It can't really help you.
If I've got 600 applicants in here, I'm not reading everyone's cover letter, which is like, I'm a really good employee.
Yeah,
exactly. It's so full of cliche most of the time. And it's just more for us to wade through. So I think, somebody asked, like, how do you help us recruiters help you? It's like keeping things really short and to the point, making everything just super accessible, like have a way to communicate with you, like have your phone number and your email readily accessible, have your password for your portfolio, like don't make us ask you for it. If you're going to be sending really long paragraphs of text about why you're a good fit for the job, we probably know that you're not. I know that sounds kind of bitchy, but usually if you're talking too much, it's like you don't have the skills, you're trying to talk your way in. So if it's just like, a quick little 3 sentences, just something quick to the point, what's the most relevant information, have good UX for us who have to look through so many resumes and portfolios every day. Just make it digestible, make it easy for us to be able to contact you and understand what you do in a moment's notice.
I love when people bold certain things. I'm reading that part.
I love that.
Bold certain things in text because I'm going to immediately be drawn to that because I'm going through and I'm trying to figure out real quick. Bam, 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 bam. Is this
don't like bold everything?
No, don't put the whole thing. But like some of those metrics, bold your metrics. We love that. Like something that you want to highlight, like bold some keywords
or
like
color.
Creating that visual distinction helps my eyes, which also, if you can make it not small font because I can't see.
Yes.
Help me help you. And there's one time when I read a page of text that's like size 9 that I'm like, can't do it.
Yeah. I think it's because people are trying to fit it onto maybe like 1 or 2 pages of a resume.
Right.
Yeah.
That means your resume is too long. The rest of it can go on LinkedIn, right? Like just go back maybe max 10 years if you are seasoned and put all of the details
We're not saying seasoned, Erica. We are not meat. We are not
I mean, I think we do get this question about, I do get a lot of questions about how long should my resume be? And I would say 2 pages ideally. I will look at 3. Beyond that, it's not a good look. And the reason it's not a good look is because as product designers, information architecture is a really important part of the job. Knowing your audience, reading the room, knowing how to influence, and I'd say that a piece of feedback I get from negative feedback I get is if somebody's too verbose in a meeting. So that goes for a resume as well. Oftentimes it's so repetitive. So it's really, save it for your record so you can remind yourself what you did. But if you can keep it to 2 pages, that is ideal.
Agreed. Yes, I think I saw a stat that said that people spend more time on 2 pages than 1 page.
And I have had I'm not going to say pleasure or displeasure, but I've had a 26-page plus resume come through. No, I'm not reading your book. But
right, pay me as an editor and then maybe I'll copy edit your book. Yeah,
they also used like different fonts on the same page and it was pure chaos. And the fact that I still remember it when I saw this resume maybe like 8-9 months ago, clearly traumatized by it. So don't traumatize recruiters with your resume.
So guys, we're at time. I know we could talk forever and ever, but it's been so awesome to have both of you here. Erin and Rebecca, thank you so much for being here. It's been such a pleasure learning from you and chatting with you and everybody on the chat. I hope you've had a wonderful time as well. Feel free to keep leaving comments. We're going to post the replay of this. So if you have any more questions that you want to pose for like a future Duff Design Unfiltered, I keep calling it Duff. I don't think anybody knows what Duff is, but Duff is the shortening of Design Unfiltered. Or any sorts of subjects you want us to cover, any sorts of like new guests, like what kind of flavor of guests. We've had design leaders, we've had design recruiters. Do you guys want to see product people? Do you guys want to see like people that are professional coaches full time? Like what sorts of
AI people
want to see? AI people. Yeah. So let us know. Send us, direct messages, or you can put it in LinkedIn. But we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Thank you. And if you're not following Design Unfiltered on LinkedIn yet, please follow us.
Yes.
Thank you all. This was a wonderful, wonderful session. Just really
All right.
appreciate it.
We're signing out. Adios.
Bye, everyone.